We greet you once again from Santa Rosa here in California. The Revelation 14:1 ministry dedicated to the truth of the Bible. Our goal is to dig into the Bible a little deeper so that we may clarify issues that have blocked our knowledge from the truth, knowledge of the truth. We've been studying Daniel 11 this past week, how Daniel was shown what will happen well before after his time. We notice that after Daniel was shown this vision while he was in the Babylonian kingdom, and then the Medo-Persians came and invaded Babylon and took over the kingdom. It was after the the Medo-Persians that Greek, led by Alexander the Great, conquered Medo-Persia, and he carried on the kingdom. But one thing was common is that the Babylonian religion was passed on from kingdom to kingdom. The Babylonian religion. And we found out last week that was the religion of Rome when it took over from Alexander the Great, the Greek Empire. The Babylonian religion that was there during Daniel's time had moved on through these other kingdoms into the Roman kingdom. During the Roman kingdom, somewhere in between there was when Jesus came into being. And Jesus was alive when Rome ruled Palestine, represented in Palestine by King Herod, who wanted to kill him when he was born. So, but today we will dig a little deeper into these two nations. We learned last week then that when Alexander the Great died, his kingdom was divided into amongst his four generals. The four generals we saw on a map last week was Macedon, Pergamum, Seleucid, and Ptolemy of Egypt. So these were the four generals that divided up Alexander the Great's kingdom of Greece. And it was after that Rome came into the picture, into that divided nation, divided kingdom, that Rome came into the picture. But Rome concentrated on the northern. We will go through the maps again. And the south of Israel was Egypt, where the Ptolemies were ruling. And we came to the conclusion last week that the king of the south was led by the Ptolemies, and the king of the north was by the Seleucid, the general Seleucid. Seleucid was so powerful that he invaded the two western kingdoms, Pergamum and who was the other one? Macedon. So he took over all that northern region. And it was in that state that Rome came in. So let's move on from there. That was a little introduction. the Seleucid king overcame both the Western kingdoms, Pergamum and Macedon. We've talked about that. He eventually became the king of the north. So when Daniel was writing back in the Babylonian era, he was already shown about this division of Alexander's kingdom. He was already shown that. No wonder he was talking about the kingdom of the north and the king of the south. When Rome took over from the Greeks in 168 BC, it took up all the areas of the Seleucid and north into Europe. So Rome took over all that northern region and also expanded up north into Europe, Western Europe. Third, we learned last week that Daniel was writing, when he was writing back in Babylon, he was, his reference was Israel, his hometown, Jerusalem. With respect to Israel, Rome was the king of the north after Rome took over Seleucid's kingdom, and the Ptolemies of Egypt was the king of the south. And point number 4 is fake Christianity, which is the Roman Catholic. Fake Christianity according to who? Who did we study? According to the ex-Jesuit priest Alberto Rivera. He was a Jesuit Catholic priest. He said that Catholicism was fake Christianity. Fake Christianity to the north under Rome, eventually led by the Pope of Rome, while to the south, the Ayatollahs of Islam ruled. So south, the Ayatollahs, they became the king of the south, and up north, the Pope of Rome, who was the leader of the fake Christian religion, according to Alberto Rivera. Here, this is on the map. Today we'll be looking a lot into maps so that we can clearly picture geographically how these kingdoms came into being. So you can see right there, Macedon, Pergamum, Syria, which was led by the Seleucid, and down south into Egypt. All in reference to the glorious land, Jerusalem, the kingdom of the south, Egypt. Eventually it spread into Arabia. And who were occupying Arabia at that time? The descendants of Ishmael. Note we found out last week that it was Rome who planned on forming a new religion, making use of those people who were occupying Arabia, the descendants of Ishmael. And that new religion was Islam. So geographically, this is how it looks. Up here is Europe, Germany, France, Switzerland, and all those other Western Europe countries. And we'll see that down here, Mediterranean, or over this way, is Italy, where the Pope ruled from. Let's move on. King of the North in history. We also learned of these dates. 538 AD, after Anno Domini. This was after Christ. In 538 AD, was the beginning of the papal rule, when the Pope became the power, both politically and religious. And he ruled all over Europe. 600 to 700, another 100 years later, that plan that Alberto talked to us about, that was planned around the late 200 AD by the Roman Church, began to form. And 600 to 700 AD is when Muhammad came into being, and the formation of the Islamic religion came into being, and and they became the Islamic religion was formed or created by the King of the North. And who is the King of the North? The Pope of Rome. 1517 AD is when the beginning of the Reformation. Martin Luther came into being, and he began to challenge the Church of Rome. He began to challenge the King of the North. And we'll see how these dates came into being over history. I pulled this out from one of the websites, and that's the website up there, www.cometojesus.info. Let's read what it says. Both the papacy and Islam persecuted God's people. Remember we said last week, both the King of the North and the King of the South were pagans. In between was Jerusalem, or God's people. So he is surrounded by pagans. The Muslims were even more brutal than the papacy by radically uprooting Christianity from many countries. The North African countries, I'll just take us back to that map. We cannot see the North African countries properly in this map. I'll show you a little later. The North African countries of Libya, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia were all flourishing Christian countries. They were all Christian. Today when you hear over the news, all these same countries are all Islamic countries. Mm-hmm. They were all Christian countries. Today you can count the number of Christians with your fingers. That's how little Christians are present in these countries. They've all been converted back to Islam. And you can imagine how effective that plan to create another religion, to stop, what was their main aim? To stop the spread of Christianity all over that green part. Do you remember the map I showed you the other week? Mm-hmm. All that green area was Christianity spreading after the disciples fled from Jerusalem, and they took with them the new gospel. Carrying on, both promoted both the two religions, Islam and Catholicism. Promoted false worship of God through the intercession of human beings. Mary, venerated also by Muslims, Muhammad, the saints in Islam. Both changed God's holy Sabbath day. The papacy changed the Sabbath to Sunday, and Muhammad changed the Sabbath to Friday. So they both changed the day of worship. When we look at the total picture, it would seem to me that expanding the prophetic role of the little horn Antichrist by including Islam in addition to the papacy is a reasonable proposal. So this is, whoever the author of this was beginning to bring these two powers, Islam and Catholicism, together. But we, as students of the Bible, we know that these are two separate powers, formed by one of them, the Roman Catholic, but the other power, Islam, became very strong. Let's move on. We've seen that image before. The Ptolemies were in existence from around 200 BC, before Christ. Where did the Ptolemies come into play here? Remember? Babylon, and that's Medo-Persia, and then this is Greek. It was after the Greek, or during the Greek reign, was when the four generals divided the country up, and the southern general was Ptolemy. So that we are talking about that representing the hip of the image. 200 BC. Where did Islam come in? Islam came into being in the 7th century AD, after the Christ's presence on earth. Rome came in here, 168 AD. You see the dates on the side there? So Rome ruled from 168 BC through AD 476. After Roman rule, then Islam came up. So even after Rome, this is pagan Rome. The collapse of pagan Rome was in 476 AD, while papal Rome was just beginning to raise its ugly head. Papal Rome came into power. They were already present right from a little after Christ. But 538 AD begins the papal rule, and they ruled for how long? 1,260 years. Up till from 538 up to 1798 AD. What happened in 1798? General Berthier went from France and went down to Rome and took the Pope, the reigning Pope at that time, I think it was Pope Pius XI, took him back to Paris, and there he died in captivity. That ended the Dark Ages, the 1260 years of reign by papal Rome. 700 AD, Islam was also on the rise, with Muhammad among the descendants of Ishmael in Arabia. So 538 AD was when Rome was running the whole of Europe. About close to 200 years later, when the formation of Islam. I just want to bring into perspective here where things happened in history. So it was during this time when Rome was, papal Rome was in power, when the formation of Islam came into being. Let's move on. Now let's see this map. This map is a much better map to show us in totality about that area. Where's the glorious land? Right here. This is the Mediterranean Sea. Jerusalem is there. North of it is Syria, and south of it is Ptolemy, Egypt. And around here is Arabia. What do you know about Arabia? Who were occupying Arabia at that time? The descendants of Ishmael. And who was planning to make use of the descendants of Ishmael? Rome, right up here. They looked down southeast, and they see the descendants of Ishmael occupying this area. It was planned right here that a new religion to make use of the descendants of Ishmael. Notice Egypt here, Syria up north, and Europe is right up here. We have Spain, we have France, we have Switzerland, Italy where Rome is, Austria, and further up north is England, Germany, all those Western Europe. So this is the map that shows us the expansion of the Ottoman Empire. This is the Islamic religion that Roman Catholic formed. Rome is right here in Italy. If you see, maybe you cannot see, would you be able to focus in on this? Yellow, orange, red. The yellow is in, what year was that?
1359.
1359, okay, you can see probably that. 1359. That was, Islam came into being in around 700 AD. So that was about another 600 years later where this power, the Ottoman Empire, began to flourish. And that started in this yellow region. And that is in the country of that's Turkey. And then you see after that it spread all over this area, all over this area. What do you know about all this area in the previous map that I showed you last week? Right up here. Which religion took all that place?
Christianity.
Christianity. After the disciples were chased away from Jerusalem, they began to spread Christianity all here, all over North Africa. Remember the countries we read about? Morocco, Algeria, what's this? Tunisia. All these were Christian countries after the disciples spread the gospel in here. These were all Christian countries up north here, even into Italy where Rome was, and into Spain, and up north. That's where Christianity had spread. What I'm trying to bring out here is how the religion of Islam, which was planned by Rome, affected the spread of Christianity. You see, that same area I showed you, was it last week? Yeah. Is now been taken over by the which empire now? The Ottoman Empire. The Islamic Empire has taken over all these areas. Notice, from here, this way, all over North Africa. But notice, it did not touch this area here. Whose area is this? The king of the north lives here in Rome, the Pope of Rome. The expansion of the Ottoman Empire came as far as there and went around the other way, taking up all where Christianity had spread earlier on in the early 200, 300 AD. So the plan by Rome to form Islam using the descendant of Ishmael has materialized into nullifying the work of the disciples. It all turned from that green Christianity back to the Ottoman Empire, which was controlled by Rome. During that time too, look here, look where all the white. Italy, where Rome is, where the king of the north is, and all of Western Europe, going up north, they were the Protestant countries. Remember that. Protestant. What were they called? Why were they called Protestant? Because they had protested out of Catholicism. They found out, led by Martin Luther in 1517, they found out about this fake Christianity by the Catholics that they protested out. You see, the jig puzzle is falling into place. Now we know the reason why people had to protest out. Because it was a fake Christianity. When they found the real Bible, a Bible that told us about God, they protested out. They walked out. All these are covered by Protestants. And they were still ruled by Rome. All in white. Let's move on from there. 1840 foretold. We've read through this in one of our past studies, but let's look at it again with this new knowledge behind us. The Convention of London in 1840 was a treaty with the title of Convention for the Pacification of the Levant, signed on 15th July 1840 between the great powers of United Kingdom, Austria, Prussia, Russia on the one hand, and the Ottoman Empire on the other. Let's go back to that past map. Great Britain up here, Russia, Prussia, who else was
and the Ottoman.
Austria. Austria is up there. See, all these Protestant countries up north, they signed a treaty with the Ottoman Empire. What was the treaty for? Let's look. The treaty summarized recent agreements concerning the Ottoman Empire and its second war with Muhammad Ali's Egypt. So, who were at war? The Ottoman Empire and
Muhammad Ali.
Egypt. Egypt. What do you know about Egypt? When you say Egypt, what word comes up? Ptolemy, the ruler of Egypt. Ptolemy. So these two powers, Ptolemy was still there, even though it has been now, according to this map, has become Islamic. They've become Islamic. They've grasped the new religion of Islam. But they were still at power. They knew that they had the power, so they were fighting the Ottoman Empire, controlled from Turkey. So these two, even though they were both Islamic now, they were fighting. The Protestant countries up here, came and signed a treaty with the Ottoman Empire to stop that war, because Ptolemy was going to threaten the Ottoman Empire. Look at what is said in this explanation. There was a second war going on, but it was brought about by the great powers fear of the destabilizing effect on the Ottoman collapse. If they were fearing that that Ottoman was going to collapse, the Ottoman Empire, that means who was going to win the war?
Egypt.
Ptolemy. Ptolemy. Bring it back into the Ptolemy. The Ottoman Empire was going to go down. So they stopped the war. It was in the interest of, look at how things tie up. The interest of the Protestant countries. They don't want the Islamic country to go down because it will affect a lot of things. The economy of Eastern Europe, which will affect Western Europe, the economy of North Africa, all these were interlinked together. So these people made an agreement with these people that to stop the war with Egypt, Ptolemy. So now you see there's many powers in existence now that no wonder there's a lot of confusion. That the Ottoman Empire collapse would have on Europe the signatories offered to Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was also to immediately withdraw its forces from Arabia, the holy city, Crete, the district of Adana, all within the Ottoman Empire. It's very puzzling again when we think that, see, the Convention of London, this was in England, that's where this thing was discussed. And the threat was happening right around here. North Africa into what is it called, Levant area. Oh, where's that? It's called Levant. Levant. East of the Mediterranean, all the areas, Syria, Iran, Iraq, all that area is known as Levant. So you see how these three religions come into contact. First, the Christian religion of of Western Europe, and then the Ottoman Empire here, and the ancient empire of Ptolemy. These three powers have all come into contact. What year was this? 1840. Remember that. That will come into place too. 1844. But 1840 was when this treaty was signed. So the dates, remember the dates, 1840. What's so important about that? Let's move on. We'll look at this timeline to Catholicism versus Islam as prophesied. These are the timeline of these two powers. 538, we went through 538. What happened in 538? The rise of the papal Rome. The Pope was in control now, and it rose up in red here. Power. And how long did it rule? For 1,260 years. After 1,260 years, what happened? General Berthier of France went and took the Pope captive. That happened in 1798 AD. 1,260 years. What's so significant about that? The Bible had prophesied about it. It will rule for 1,260 days, which is 1,260 years. And at the collapse of the papal Rome, it did not come back to life until what year?
1929.
1929. What happened in 1929? Prime Minister
Napoleon.
Mussolini of Italy gave back the state power or the political power to the Vatican. And there began the rise again from 1929 till today. We are still going up. The power of papal Rome is back on the scene. 1798, General Badia brought him down, brought that power down. 1929 AD, Mussolini gave back that power. And it's beginning to rise to a peak very soon, we'll see. That's the papal power. Let's have a look at the Islamic power. Who formed the Islamic, who created this power?
Roman.
Rome. This same power here had been planning and created this power, second power. 670 AD was when, during Muhammad's time, then it started to grow. For 150 years, it was strong, and the Bible predicted that time period that they were going to be like a thorn amongst their brethren. It began to grow, Islam. And for 150 years, it went that way. And then in 1449, this was when it took up another power, and it began to start invading countries, like it was, we've seen in that map. The Ottoman power. It started invading all this area, which were Christians, true Christians, not fake Christians, before. Now the Ottoman Empire was at work, and it began to take over all these Christian countries and converted all of them back to Islam. That took how long?
391.
391 years. We will look at the biblical prophecy on this. So it was in power for 391 years before it came down in what year?
1840.
1840. 1840 was when that treaty came into place. Stop the invasion. So they were stopped at this, on this year, 1840, through that treaty we went through. It died just like the papal rule. For how long? Until 1970 AD, just about 46 years ago. Things happened again that they began to grow. 1970, Islam is growing. Today, now, Islam is back to its power. We see them all over the world, claiming to be given the power to spread their religion everywhere they go. They're demanding governments to respect them, respect this power. Does Rome have any control over them? No, they don't. That's the reason we found out last week that the king of the south came right up into the areas controlled by the king of the north, agitated him, and what did he do? Like a whirlwind, he went down, right down south to Ptolemy's area. And then he came back up and went into the glorious land, into Jerusalem. So we found that out. And that's what we are looking at right now. Let's look at the Bible. That's the background. We've just studied history, what happened in history. Let's see what the Bible tells us. Revelation verse 9, remember last week we went through Daniel 11 in the Old Testament, and it talked specifically about the Islamic religion. This week we're looking at Revelation chapter 9. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. So they are likened unto locusts, grasshopper, a clean animal, but very devastating when not controlled. These locusts will just come in, eat up the whole farm, and then leave. When they are not controlled, that's what they will do. But they are a clean animal. They are one of animals that classed as clean animal, and we can eat them. As the Bible classifies for the food that we eat, that can be eaten. But when not controlled, these locusts can be very harmful. And unto them was given power as the scorpions. The scorpions can kill someone. Of the earth have power. Verse 4 says, and it was commanded them, the locusts, that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not
the seal of God in their forehead.
They were told to go and destroy those who do not have the seal. What does that mean? What's the seal of God? The seal of God is His Sabbath day. Those who did not have the seal of God were to be killed, to be destroyed by these locusts. So Islam was targeting which Christianity? We have true Christianity and the fake Christianity according to Alberto Rivera. They were commanded to destroy which one? The fake one. They were attacking their own maker. Those who worship not on the Sabbath, but worship on Sunday. Fake Christianity. The Protestant. Let's go back to this map. The Protestants that lived in these areas, they protested out of Catholicism, but they kept the Catholic day of worship. The day that they had, what was the word? They claimed that they had the power to make holy. They sanctified the first day of the week and not the Sabbath day, the seventh day, which God had sanctified from the beginning. These locusts were commanded to destroy those without the mark. How that happened in history, we will be able to see that too. And verse 5 says, and to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a
scorpion
when he striketh a man. How long was it given?
5 months.
5 months. How long is 5 months in prophecy? 5 months is how many days? 1 month is how many days? 30, 30 days. And 30 days, 5 months is how many days? 30 times 5, which is 150. 150 days in Bible prophecy is equal to
150 years.
150 years. We already seen in this. They were ruling from here 670 AD. For 150 years, they were just building up. They said they were among their brethren, living amongst their brethren, but being a nuisance. Let's move on. What else happened to them? Oh. And Revelation chapter 10. Oh, sorry. Oh, I missed out on that other verse. It is a continuation of that verse 6, 7, and 8. I didn't put it up. But anyway, if you look at this graph, that was the 150 years. We read about 5 months. And then there was another period here, the 391 years, from 1449, and that ended in 1840. From 1449 to 1840 is exactly 391 years as prophesied by the Bible. So unfortunately I did not put up those verses for us to prove the 391, but we can prove it too the same way we prove the 1260 years and the 150 years for Islam. So for 391 years took us up to 1840. 1840, that's when Islam came to a stop, because a treaty was drawn up between the Ottoman Empire and the Western Protestant countries to stop the war between Ptolemy and the Ottoman. So it stopped till 1970, and then they have been on the rise up again now. Let's look at this verse, Revelation chapter 10. This was another prophecy which talks about the time. If I'll just quickly read through the verses, it says, and he had in his hand a little open book, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth. This was, in verse 1, it talks about an angel that came from heaven, and John was watching it come down to earth. And it had a little book on his right hand. And when he came to earth, one foot was on the land, and the other foot was on the sea. And cried with a loud voice, that same angel, as when a lion roareth, and when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. The angel cried, and 7 thunders spoke. And John heard what the thunders were speaking. And when the 7 thunders had uttered their voice, after they spoke, I was about to write. John was about to write. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered. Whatever the thunders, 7 thunders had told you, had spoken about, seal that up. And do not write them. Not to write them, but seal it. And the angel which I saw, that stand upon the sea and upon the earth, lifted up his hand to heaven, and sware by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that they are in, and the earth and the things that they are in, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. There's no more time in Bible prophecies after this prophecy that is about to be revealed. And the prophecy started from verse 7 and went to the end of the chapter. But what we're trying to say here is that the time in Bible prophecy is no more. The prophecies that will come into play in these times we live in, they have no time. So, as Christians, we should be on the alert to see what happens. If we go back to this timeline, you see these 391 years ended in what year? 1840. But the prophecy of Revelation 10, we've just read partly here, ended in what year? 1844. It was after 1844 that this angel is saying there will be time no longer. So these time prophecies, this ended in 1798. This time prophecy ended here. This time prophecy ended in 1840. Daniel 9 time prophecy ended in 1844. And this angel is saying, after that, there's time no longer. If you want to be a true Christian, you have to be observant. Look at what happened after that. What else happened? 1929. Is that prophesied in the Bible, that time? No. How did we know that it has fulfilled? Because that power came back again. Prophecy said that one of its head was fatally wounded. And then what happened? It came back to life. We know it was fatally wounded in what year? 1798. But when did it come back to life? We don't know, because it was time no longer after 1844. This happened in 1929. So anything that happened after 1844, there's no time prophecy about it. You just have to be observant to see that things are happening. Okay. 1929, this happened. 1970, that also happened. What happened in 1970? Another treaty that gave power to Islam, which started that rise. You see, Islam today, Islam and the papal power are both on their way up. There will come a time when they won't be able to stand each other and fulfill Daniel 11. What did Daniel 11 say? What does Daniel 11 say? The king of the north will be agitated so much that he will come back and sweep down south like a whirlwind. He'll go right down, and even right down to Egypt, where the Ptolemies are. And then he'll come back again into the glorious land, Israel. and Jerusalem. As Bible students, we know that that will happen. That's a good thing about this, studying the Bible. You are just like God. God foresees the future. Study the Bible and ask for God's wisdom. He will show you the future. He knows the future. That's how he's got it all recorded in the Bible. 1929, 1970, there are no time prophecies about that in the Bible. But we know, we've been observant. We know that that has already happened. We already know too that the king of the north will very soon be agitated so much that he will go down like a whirlwind and destroy the Islamic expansion. I think that's where we will end today. We still have not solved last week's question. As the king of the north is on his way down and goes into the glorious land, he was disturbed by what? By a tiding from the north and from the east. A message was coming out that was disturbing this very strong person, the king of the north, or the papal power. He was troubled by that message. And what message is that? The message of truth that we are talking about here. We are not afraid to point at who the king of the north is. That's the truth of the Bible. This is the message that will be troubling the king of the north and which will cause our death if we have to die. This is the message of truth. What Revelation 14:1 is standing up for, the truth. That message will disturb, according to Daniel 11, the king of the north. Even with all his victories, he is disturbed by this message. And that message is for you and me to spread. Let's bow our head in prayer.